Every dream you've ever had, every goal you've ever set, every promise you've ever made to yourself, all of it depends on one thing: willpower. Without it, your vision remains a fantasy. With it, you can bend reality to match your dreams. So the real question is not whether you want success, it's whether you have the strength to choose discipline over distraction, growth over comfort, and persistence over quitting. When people talk about willpower, they often speak of it as though it is some magical quality that certain individuals are born with. They look at those who achieve massive success, those who seem unshakable in their discipline, and assume that they were simply blessed with stronger self-control. But the truth is far different. Willpower is not a gift given to the few. It is a muscle, and like any muscle, it must be trained, stretched, tested, and strengthened through consistent use. The same way someone builds physical strength by lifting weights, you build inner strength by making choices that go against ease and comfort. This understanding is powerful because it means that you are not disqualified if you feel weak today. It means that no matter how many times you've failed, no matter how often you've given in to temptation, you can still build the muscle of willpower. What you need is not a miracle, but a method, and that method begins with practice. Think about what happens when someone decides to get stronger physically. They don't walk into a gym for the first time, put 300 pounds on a barbell, and expect to lift it with perfect form. They start small, perhaps with light weights or even with just their own body weight, and over time their muscles adapt. Slowly but surely, what once felt impossible begins to feel manageable, and what once was manageable becomes easy. The principle is exactly the same with willpower. If you expect to wake up one morning and suddenly resist every distraction, overcome every temptation, and push through every obstacle without breaking down, you will be disappointed. But if you train yourself daily to make small, disciplined choices, if you condition yourself little by little, you will grow stronger in ways you cannot imagine. Every time you resist the urge to procrastinate, every time you put your phone down and focus on your work, every time you wake up instead of hitting the snooze button, you are performing a rep for your willpower muscle. Each rep may feel insignificant in the moment, but just as no single workout builds a champion physique, no single act of discipline builds an unbreakable will. It is the consistency, the relentless repetition of choosing growth over comfort that transforms weakness into strength. This is why the people you admire most for their discipline are not superheroes. They are simply individuals who decided to train themselves day after day until their willpower became their defining strength. It's important to understand that, like a muscle, willpower can also be fatigued. If you work your muscles too hard without rest, they fail. If you rely solely on willpower for every decision, eventually it becomes depleted. This is why smart training matters. Just as an athlete carefully manages their energy and recovery, you must learn to manage your willpower. Prioritize the most important battles and create habits that automate discipline so you don't rely on sheer will alone. For example, if your goal is to eat healthier, don't fill your kitchen with junk food and then depend on willpower to resist it daily. That's like walking into a gym and trying to lift weights far beyond your capacity. It's setting yourself up for failure. Instead, create an environment where the better choice is the easier choice. In this way, you are still training your willpower, but you are also supporting it so it grows stronger instead of weaker. As you build your willpower muscle, you'll also discover another fascinating truth. Small victories compound into massive strength. In the beginning, saying no to one cookie, resisting the urge to scroll for an extra 5 minutes, or pushing yourself to do one more set at the gym may not feel transformative. But every one of those decisions leaves a mark. Each time you win a battle, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of self-control, and belief is a powerful fuel. Over time, these micro moments stack together, and you begin to see yourself differently. You begin to identify as someone who is disciplined, someone who follows through, someone who has strength beyond impulse. That identity shift is what locks in your growth, because once you believe you are disciplined, your actions naturally rise to match that belief. Another thing to remember is that just like building physical muscles requires resistance, building willpower requires challenge. No one grows stronger by staying comfortable. You don't become fit by never sweating, and you don't become disciplined by always giving in. The very moments that feel the hardest, the moments where temptation screams the loudest, are the exact moments where your willpower is being trained. When you want to quit, when you want to take the easy way out, that's your chance to grow. Too many people see struggle as a sign of weakness, when in reality struggle is the weight that makes your willpower stronger. If you never encounter resistance, you never build the strength to overcome anything. Embrace difficulty, not as an obstacle to your progress, but as the very tool that shapes you into a person of power and self-control. Consider this: no one ever regrets the moments they chose discipline. No one ever looks back and says, "I wish I had been weaker. I wish I had given up." The regret always comes from giving in too soon, from letting comfort steal the future you could have built. But every disciplined choice becomes a building block in your character. And character, more than talent, more than luck, more than opportunity, is what carries you forward in life. Willpower is the foundation of that character, and the stronger it becomes, the more unshakable you become. One of the greatest reasons people struggle with willpower is not that they are weak, lazy, or unmotivated, but because they lack clarity. It is nearly impossible to sustain discipline and self-control when you don't know what you are fighting for. Without clarity, life becomes a blur of distractions, impulses, and shifting desires. You might wake up one morning with the intention to work hard, but by midday you are lost in busyness that doesn't move you closer to anything meaningful. Clarity acts like a compass. It gives you direction, and with direction comes strength. When you know exactly what you want and why you want it, you develop an inner force that makes resisting distractions easier and makes enduring challenges more bearable. The clearer the vision, the stronger your willpower becomes, because clarity transforms vague wishes into a focused mission. Think about it. A person who says, "I want to be healthier," may have some good intentions, but their statement lacks clarity. What does healthier mean? Does it mean losing 20 pounds, running a marathon, lowering blood pressure, or simply cutting out junk food? Without definition, the mind struggles to attach energy to the goal. Compare that to someone who says, "I will run a half marathon in 6 months, training 4 days per week, and my goal is to finish in under 2 hours." That level of clarity creates an entirely different kind of energy. The goal is specific, measurable, and time-bound. When temptation shows up, like the urge to skip training or eat something that harms progress, this person has a clear reason to say no. Their clarity becomes the fuel for their willpower, because every choice is either taking them closer to or further from their defined goal. Clarity also eliminates the hidden drain that comes from decision fatigue. When you live without clarity, you are constantly debating with yourself. Should I do this or that? Should I work on my project or watch television? Should I save money or spend it? Every indecision burns mental energy, and over time, it weakens your willpower. But when you are clear, your decisions are already made. If you have committed to waking up at 5 a.m. to build your business, you don't need to negotiate with yourself at night. If you have defined that you will exercise 3 times per week, there is no internal argument when the day arrives. It's already decided. Clarity removes the mental noise, leaving your willpower free to focus on execution. Another powerful aspect of clarity is that it strengthens resilience. Challenges, obstacles, and setbacks are guaranteed on the path to any meaningful goal. Without clarity, these difficulties feel overwhelming and pointless. You start to wonder why you're suffering and whether it's even worth it. But when your vision is clear, when your why is sharp and personal, you can endure pain because you understand its purpose. Think of someone training for a championship fight. The grueling workouts, the strict diet, the endless hours of practice would feel torturous if done aimlessly. But because the fighter has clarity of purpose to step into the ring and win, it transforms the pain into fuel. The same applies to your life. With clarity, the discomfort of discipline no longer feels like punishment. It feels like progress. Clarity also magnifies focus. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Notifications, social media, endless entertainment, and constant demands on your attention. Without clarity, every distraction seems attractive because you don't have a strong reason to resist. But when you have clearly defined goals, distractions reveal themselves for what they are: thieves of your future. If you know your time is dedicated to writing a book, building a business, or mastering a skill, then scrolling aimlessly on your phone doesn't feel harmless anymore. It feels like betrayal. This heightened awareness makes it far easier to exercise willpower, because the choice between distraction and discipline is no longer vague. It is sharp, clear, and undeniable. One of the overlooked elements of clarity is emotional connection. It's not enough to define what you want, you must also define why it matters to you. Numbers, timelines, and strategies are important, but they will not hold your willpower when life gets hard unless you are emotionally invested. Ask yourself, why does this goal matter? What will it mean for my life, for my family, for my future? How will achieving this change my identity, my confidence, my legacy? When your clarity is tied to deep emotional reasons, you unlock an extra layer of strength. You stop relying solely on logic and instead engage your heart. And when both your mind and heart are aligned, your willpower becomes nearly unstoppable. Clarity also provides you with the gift of measurement. What gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed improves. If your goals are vague, you cannot track your progress, and when you cannot track progress, you quickly lose motivation. Clear goals give you markers along the journey that allow you to celebrate small victories and adjust your strategy when needed. These markers keep your willpower alive because they remind you that your effort is producing results, even if they are small. This prevents the discouragement that often comes when people work hard without seeing progress, simply because they never defined what progress looks like. Finally, clarity brings alignment. Many people live with fragmented goals. They want success in business, but they also want comfort. They want to be fit, but they also want indulgence. They want meaningful relationships, but they also want to avoid vulnerability. This kind of internal conflict weakens willpower because part of you is always working against another part of you. Clarity forces you to make decisions about what truly matters and align your actions with those priorities. When your goals, values, and daily actions are in harmony, you no longer waste energy fighting yourself. All your willpower is directed in one unified direction, and that unity multiplies your strength beyond measure. When people think about success, they often picture massive achievements: the big promotion, the million-dollar business, the gold medal, or the dream lifestyle. These images are inspiring, but they also create a dangerous illusion: the idea that greatness is built on giant leaps and overnight breakthroughs. In reality, the foundation of all lasting success is not one huge victory, but a series of small, consistent wins. These small wins are the building blocks of willpower, the quiet proof that you can trust yourself, and the invisible momentum that pushes you closer to your ultimate vision. If you overlook them, you weaken your discipline. But if you learn to honor them, celebrate them, and repeat them daily, you will discover that small wins build a kind of power that is unshakable. Think about the process of forming a new habit. If your goal is to start running 5 miles every day, you may be tempted to start big on the very first day. But for someone who hasn't run in years, this is not only unrealistic, it's discouraging. You'll exhaust yourself, feel like a failure, and possibly give up altogether. But what if instead you start with running just 1 mile? That's a small win. It may not look impressive to others, but to your willpower, it is everything. That 1 mile signals to your brain, I am capable. It reinforces discipline and it builds confidence. From there, the next step becomes easier, and eventually the 5 miles that once seemed impossible now feels natural. This is how small wins stack upon one another until they create a reality that once felt unreachable. The psychology behind small wins is powerful. Every time you achieve even the smallest goal, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical associated with pleasure and reward. This creates a positive feedback loop. You feel good about your effort, so you are more motivated to repeat it. Over time, this cycle builds momentum, and momentum reduces the strain on your willpower. In other words, small wins trick your brain into loving discipline. What felt like a struggle at first begins to feel like satisfaction, and eventually, it becomes part of your identity. This is why celebrating small victories matters. If you wait until the massive breakthrough to feel proud, you rob yourself of the fuel that keeps your willpower alive on the journey. Small wins also serve as proof that you are moving forward. Too many people quit because they don't see instant results. They work for a few days or weeks and wonder why their lives haven't transformed yet. But transformation is not about one giant leap. It is about accumulation. Think of a jar filled with drops of water. Each drop may seem insignificant on its own, but over time, the jar fills to the brim. Small wins are those drops. Each one matters, each one counts, and each one brings you closer to overflowing success. The problem is that most people dismiss them as unimportant. They underestimate the power of waking up early one more day, reading just 10 pages of a book, saving just a few dollars, or resisting one unhealthy meal. But the truth is, every major achievement is nothing more than the result of compounded small wins executed consistently over time. Another reason small wins are so powerful is that they build trust with yourself. Many people struggle with willpower because they carry the weight of broken promises. They say they will start the diet, but quit after 3 days. They say they will save money, but spend recklessly. They say they will wake up early, but hit snooze every morning. Each broken promise weakens self-trust, and without self-trust, willpower has no foundation. But when you commit to small wins, small enough that you can actually keep your word, you begin to rebuild that trust. If you tell yourself you will do 1 push-up a day, and you actually do it, you begin to believe in yourself again. Over time, you increase the challenge, but the principle remains. Small wins restore the credibility of your own voice, and that credibility gives you the strength to pursue larger victories. Small wins also protect you from overwhelm. When your goals are massive, they can feel intimidating. You may know you want to write a book, but staring at 300 blank pages can paralyze you. If, instead, you commit to writing just 1 page a day, the task suddenly feels manageable. And over time, 1 page a day turns into a finished book. The same principle applies to business, health, relationships, or any area of life. When you break the overwhelming vision into small, achievable actions, you reduce resistance and make it easier to show up daily. And showing up daily is what builds unstoppable willpower. Another beautiful aspect of small wins is that they create ripple effects. One small victory in one area of your life often spreads to others. For example, waking up early one morning may give you enough time to exercise, which boosts your energy and mood, which makes you more productive at work, which improves your confidence and relationships. That single small win multiplies into a series of benefits that stretch far beyond the original act. This compounding effect is why small wins are so underestimated, because their impact is not only immediate, but exponential. Small wins also redefine success in a way that keeps you motivated long-term. If success only means achieving the massive goal at the end, you may feel like a failure for months or years until you get there. But if success is redefined as simply winning today, winning this moment, doing the small thing you promised yourself you would do, then success becomes accessible every single day. This creates a lifestyle of winning, a habit of victory, and a mindset that thrives on progress. And when progress becomes your identity, your willpower becomes less about effort and more about expression. It is simply who you are. Discipline is often seen as an internal quality, something that lives purely within your mind and willpower. While it's true that personal resolve matters, the environment you place yourself in is just as important, sometimes even more. Your surroundings have a powerful influence on your behavior, often in ways you don't consciously realize. The truth is, your environment can either make discipline easier or make it nearly impossible. You may have the strongest intentions, the clearest goals, and the deepest desire to succeed, but if your environment constantly tempts you, distracts you, and pulls you in the opposite direction, your willpower will eventually run dry. On the other hand, if you design an environment that supports your discipline, you will find that self-control becomes less about battling temptation and more about flowing with the structure around you. Consider how much of human behavior is driven not by deliberate decisions, but by cues from the environment. If you walk into a room with a television remote on the couch, chances are you'll pick it up and start flipping through channels, even if you had no plan to watch TV. If you leave cookies on the counter, you'll reach for one even if you weren't hungry. If your phone is within reach, buzzing with notifications, you'll check it constantly even when you're supposed to be focused. None of these actions come from conscious, deliberate intention. They are reactions to environmental triggers. This is why relying solely on willpower is exhausting, because you are forcing yourself to resist cues all day long. The smarter approach is to change the environment, so the cues that surround you push you toward discipline rather than away from it. One powerful example of this principle is found in nutrition and health. People who keep fruits, vegetables, and water visible in their kitchens are far more likely to eat healthily than those who keep chips, candy, and soda in plain sight. The difference is not that one group has more willpower than the other. The difference is the environment. The same applies to fitness. If your workout clothes and shoes are laid out the night before, the friction to exercise in the morning is much lower. But if you wake up and your workout gear is buried in the closet, you've created an extra barrier, and that barrier makes it easier to give up. Discipline thrives in environments designed for success. The people around you are also a critical part of your environment. If you surround yourself with people who are negative, lazy, and unmotivated, it will drain your energy and lower your standards. It becomes normal to skip commitments, normal to complain, normal to settle for mediocrity. On the other hand, if you surround yourself with disciplined, ambitious, and forward-moving people, you absorb their energy, their habits, and their standards. Being around people who hold themselves accountable naturally encourages you to do the same. Environment is contagious. Discipline, like laziness, spreads. This is why choosing your circle is not a small decision, but one of the most powerful influences on your future. Technology is another environmental factor that either strengthens or weakens your discipline. If your phone is loaded with social media apps that deliver endless distractions, then every time you try to focus, you are battling an environment designed to steal your attention. That is not a fair fight. But if you deliberately manage your digital environment, turning off notifications, deleting time-wasting apps, using tools that block distractions, you make focus the default. It's not that you suddenly become more disciplined overnight. It's that your environment stops pulling you in the opposite direction. Small adjustments in your digital space can create massive improvements in your productivity, energy, and ability to stay consistent. Even your physical environment, the space you live and work in, shapes your discipline more than you realize. A cluttered, disorganized environment leads to a cluttered, disorganized mind. If your workspace is full of distractions, random items, and noise, your brain has to work twice as hard to focus. But when you create an environment that is clean, organized, and purposeful, discipline becomes easier because your surroundings are aligned with your goals. If you want to study, create a space that feels like a study zone. If you want to write, set up a desk that feels like a creative sanctuary. The environment sends signals to your brain, and those signals either trigger discipline or sabotage it. Another subtle way environment shapes discipline is through routines and systems. When your environment is structured around habits, you don't have to make constant decisions. For example, if you set a specific place where you always do your work, over time, simply sitting in that chair triggers focus. If you have a designated time and space for exercise, your environment cues your body into the discipline of movement. This reduces the amount of willpower you need to get started because the environment itself does half the work. You begin to associate certain spaces and times with specific actions, and this association hardwires discipline into your daily life. Environment also has the power to shape your identity. If you live in an environment that constantly reminds you of your weaknesses, it reinforces the belief that you are not disciplined. For instance, if your home is filled with unfinished projects, clutter, and reminders of goals you abandoned, you subconsciously see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through. But when you create an environment that reflects order, progress, and reminders of what you've accomplished, you reinforce the identity of a disciplined person. Over time, that identity becomes stronger, and with it, your ability to act with consistency. One of the most important truths about environment is that you don't have to wait for the perfect one. You can design it. You have the power to control what is around you. You can choose what stays in your space and what goes. You can choose which people you allow into your inner circle. You can choose what shows up on your screen, what food fills your pantry, what reminders are posted on your walls. Too many people underestimate how much control they have over their environment, and as a result, they place themselves in situations where discipline is an uphill battle. But when you take ownership of your surroundings and design them intentionally, you remove friction, eliminate unnecessary temptation, and set yourself up to win consistently. Self-control is often described as a matter of pure willpower, as though the only factor that determines whether you stay disciplined is the strength of your mind. But what many people fail to realize is that your body and mind are deeply connected, and without energy, even the strongest intentions begin to crumble. Discipline is not simply about saying no to distractions or yes to commitments. It is about having the physical, mental, and emotional fuel to make those choices consistently. When your energy is low, your resistance to temptation weakens, your focus scatters, and your willpower drains faster. On the other hand, when your energy is high, self-control feels easier, decisions feel sharper, and your ability to endure challenges multiplies. This is why managing your energy is one of the most critical foundations for building lasting self-control. Think about how often poor energy leads to poor decisions. After a long, exhausting day, it is much harder to resist junk food, much harder to say yes to exercise, much harder to focus on meaningful work. It's not that you are lazy or weak, it's that your body and brain are depleted. Self-control is a high-energy activity. It requires glucose, focus, and strong neural pathways. When those resources are low, you naturally default to whatever is easiest and most comfortable. This is why so many people sabotage themselves at night, giving in to unhealthy habits they easily resist in the morning. The difference is not in their desire, but in their energy levels. To maintain discipline, you must learn how to protect and replenish your energy throughout the day. One of the most important sources of energy is sleep. Without adequate rest, your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and self-control, functions poorly. This is why sleep-deprived people struggle with focus, productivity, and resisting impulses. Sleep is not a luxury, it is fuel for discipline. When you are rested, your mind is sharp, your mood is stable, and your willpower is stronger. If you want to master self-control, start by mastering your sleep environment, your bedtime routines, and your commitment to consistent rest. Every extra hour of quality sleep is an investment in your ability to stay disciplined when it matters most. Nutrition is another critical factor. The food you eat literally becomes the energy that powers your body and brain. A diet loaded with sugar and processed foods creates spikes and crashes in energy, making it much harder to stay consistent with discipline. One moment you feel unstoppable, the next you feel sluggish and drained, and in that low state, temptation becomes irresistible. By contrast, eating whole foods, drinking water, and fueling your body with steady sources of energy stabilizes your willpower. The strength to say no to what harms you and yes to what helps you is much easier to access when your body is nourished. Many people try to fix their lack of self-control by focusing only on their mind, but often the solution is found in the kitchen, not just in their thoughts. Movement is another way to fuel energy and, by extension, self-control. When you exercise, you do not only build physical strength, you improve circulation, increase oxygen flow to the brain, and elevate your mood through endorphins. These physiological benefits translate directly into stronger self-control. A body that feels strong energizes the mind to act strong. It doesn't have to be hours of intense training. Even short bursts of daily movement can shift your energy enough to strengthen your willpower. People who treat exercise as a tool for discipline, not just for fitness, discover that movement is one of the fastest ways to recharge energy and sharpen focus. Managing energy also involves protecting it from unnecessary drains. Constantly checking your phone, scrolling aimlessly, engaging in negative conversations, or spending time in chaotic environments all drain energy at an invisible but powerful level. These habits exhaust your mental resources and leave you with less strength to practice discipline. This is why self-control isn't only about adding better practices. It's also about removing the things that silently weaken your energy. When you guard your attention, when you cut out toxic influences, when you minimize distractions, you conserve energy that can then be applied to the choices that truly matter. Another often overlooked source of energy is emotional well-being. Carrying stress, unresolved conflict, and negative emotions consumes an enormous amount of mental energy. When your emotions are in turmoil, it is difficult to maintain focus, patience, or willpower. This is why practices like journaling, meditation, prayer, or even meaningful conversations with trusted people are powerful tools. They release emotional weight, free up mental bandwidth, and create emotional clarity. That clarity translates into energy, and that energy strengthens discipline. Without addressing the emotional component, you may constantly feel like you're fighting an uphill battle, even when you are physically rested and well-nourished. Your environment, too, directly influences your energy. A cluttered room drains your focus, loud noises pull at your attention, and constant visual chaos exhausts the mind. By creating an environment that is clean, ordered, and aligned with your goals, you preserve energy. The less your brain has to fight unnecessary distractions, the more energy it has available for practicing discipline. Energy conservation is just as important as energy generation. You don't need to fuel your body and mind endlessly if you are constantly leaking energy through environments and habits that drain you. Ultimately, energy management is the silent partner of self-control. You may have the strongest willpower in the world, but without energy, it will collapse under pressure. Discipline is not just a battle of desire versus temptation. It is also a battle of energy versus exhaustion. The more energy you have, the more resilient your willpower becomes. The less energy you have, the more vulnerable you are to impulses and poor choices. By treating your energy like a precious resource, protecting it, fueling it, and directing it, you set yourself up to win the daily battles of discipline. The true test of willpower is not in how you act when rewards come quickly, but in how you respond when they are delayed. Human nature craves immediacy. We want comfort now, pleasure now, results now. Yet the ability to delay gratification is one of the greatest indicators of long-term success. Those who master the art of waiting, those who can endure short-term discomfort in exchange for future rewards, build a kind of inner strength that becomes unshakable. This principle is not abstract. It has been proven in psychology, demonstrated in business, lived out in fitness, and experienced in every area of life. When you delay gratification, you are not denying yourself joy, you are multiplying it. You are choosing to sacrifice the small for the sake of the greater, and that choice is the essence of discipline. Think of the classic experiment with children and marshmallows, where a child was given the choice between eating one marshmallow immediately or waiting and receiving two later. The children who were able to wait demonstrated higher levels of success in life years later, from academic performance to career achievement. Why? Because they had learned the principle of delaying gratification. They understood, even at a young age, that waiting for more was better than indulging in less right now. The same principle applies to every goal you have. If you can say no to the quick fix, the easy distraction, the instant comfort, you create space for bigger, better rewards that only time and patience can deliver. Delayed gratification strengthens self-control because it forces you to hold your vision in front of you. When you choose to save money instead of spending it, you are imagining the freedom, opportunities, and security that future wealth will bring. When you choose to eat clean instead of indulging in junk food, you are holding the image of health, strength, and vitality that will come later. Every act of delaying gratification is an act of faith in your future self. It is you telling yourself, I believe that what I'm working toward is worth more than what I can have right now. That belief builds confidence, and that confidence fuels discipline. Another reason delaying gratification multiplies strength is that it builds endurance. The more you practice waiting, the more capacity you develop to resist urges. At first, it may feel impossible to hold off. You may feel restless, anxious, or even frustrated. But over time, as you practice patience, your ability to endure discomfort grows. This endurance is a kind of mental muscle that carries over into every area of life. If you can endure the discomfort of waiting for results in one area, you are far more equipped to endure challenges elsewhere. That ability to wait, to persist without seeing immediate rewards, is what separates those who quit from those who win. Delaying gratification also rewires your relationship with pleasure. When you always give in to instant gratification, your threshold for satisfaction lowers. Small pleasures lose their meaning because you are constantly consuming them without restraint. But when you wait, when you delay, the eventual reward tastes sweeter. The discipline of postponing pleasure heightens your appreciation for it. The person who eats dessert after weeks of clean eating enjoys it far more deeply than the person who indulges every day. The one who finally takes a vacation after months of focused work values the rest more than someone who escapes into leisure every weekend. Delaying gratification multiplies not just the size of the reward, but also the intensity of the satisfaction. There is also a financial principle tied to delayed gratification that reveals its power. Think about compound interest. If you spend your money immediately, you enjoy a small, fleeting pleasure. But if you save and invest that same money, over time it grows into something far greater. The same principle applies to willpower. Every time you delay gratification, you are compounding your strength. Each act of restraint builds upon the last, multiplying your inner capacity. Over weeks, months, and years, the person who consistently delays gratification becomes exponentially stronger, not just in willpower, but in results. They achieve more, create more, and enjoy more because they had the discipline to wait. One of the hardest parts of delaying gratification is dealing with the emptiness of the waiting period. It feels uncomfortable to deny yourself something now without immediate evidence that your sacrifice is worth it. This is why so many people give up too soon. They don't see progress quickly enough, so they trade the long-term gain for a short-term fix. But the truth is that much of success happens underground before it ever shows on the surface. Seeds grow roots long before they sprout leaves. Muscles strengthen internally before they visibly change. Businesses often struggle unseen before they become overnight successes in the eyes of the world. Delaying gratification is trusting the unseen process, knowing that the reward is building even if you can't see it yet. Another powerful aspect of delayed gratification is how it strengthens identity. Every time you resist immediate pleasure, you reinforce the belief that you are disciplined, focused, and capable of control. You stop identifying as someone who gives in easily and begin identifying as someone who can wait for more. This identity shift changes everything. It alters the way you approach decisions. Because once you see yourself as someone who values the future over the present, you naturally align your actions with that identity. Over time, delaying gratification stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a natural expression of who you are. Finally, delaying gratification creates separation. Most people are trapped by their impulses, slaves to whatever feels good in the moment. But those who master the art of waiting stand apart. They achieve what others dream of. They live at a level others envy. And they experience rewards that others never taste. Not because they were luckier or more talented, but because they were willing to delay. That separation is not built on extraordinary moments of discipline, but on the daily choice to wait, to endure, and to trust the process. Each act of delayed gratification is a brick, and over time, those bricks build the fortress of strength that protects your dreams. The deepest source of willpower is not raw determination, not sheer effort, and not even self-discipline in the moment. It is identity. Who you believe you are will always dictate what you are capable of enduring. When you see yourself as weak, undisciplined, or someone who always gives up, your actions will align with that identity, no matter how much you try to fight it. But when you truly believe you are strong, resilient, and unstoppable, you no longer have to force yourself to endure hardship. Endurance becomes natural because your actions are simply a reflection of who you are. That is why identity is the ultimate fuel for willpower. It is not about trying harder. It is about becoming someone who naturally does what you once struggled to do.